Abdul Sharif, who has a speech on retirement adequacy, the abolition of the retirement age and ageism.
Puan-puan setanah air, menjelang 2030, kira-kira 1 daripada 4 penduduk yang akan berumur 65 tahun ke atas. Hanya terdapat kira-kira 2.7 warga negara dalam kumpulan umur kerja untuk setiap warga negara berumur 65 tahun ke atas. Tidak hairanlah bahawa di Singapura, banyak warga emas terus bekerja untuk menyara hidup mereka sendiri. Kajian menunjukkan bahawa seorang warga emas Singapura berusia 65 tahun ke atas dan tinggal sendiri memerlukan kira-kira 1,379 sebulan untuk memenuhi taraf hidup asas. Sebilangan besar mereka yang berumur antara 50 hingga 68 tahun hanya mempunyai pendidikan menengah ke bawah. Mereka memegang pekerjaan dengan gaji rendah semasa usia bekerja tetapi menghadapi persaraan di Singapura dengan kos sara hidup yang tinggi. Namun, ramai di antara mereka tidak meminta bantuan. Tinjauan tahun lalu menunjukkan bahawa lebih daripada separuh warga emas ingin terus bekerja sepenuh masa. Kami di Parti Pekerja mendengar seruan mereka dan kami mencadangkan agar usia persaraan dapat dihapuskan untuk membolehkan warga Singapura bekerja selama mereka mampu dan berhasrat. Mungkin ada kebimbangan di antara segmen masyarakat kita yang berbeza. Pekerja muda kita mungkin bimbang bahawa mereka tidak dapat maju dalam kerjaya mereka jika pekerja yang lebih tua terus bekerja. Namun, mereka harus mempertimbangkan bahawa pekerjaan mereka sendiri juga akan meningkat ketika mereka beralih dari satu tahap kehidupan ke lain. Majikan mungkin bimbang bahawa pengambilan pekerja senior mungkin terlalu mahal. Namun, dalam keadaan ekonomi yang sedang berubah ini, kita dapat melakukan lebih banyak perkara untuk mendorong pekerja yang bersedia bekerja dan meningkatkan kemahiran diri mereka untuk meneruskan sumbangan mereka tanpa mengira usia. Kekhawatiran mengenai pemberhentian kerja secara tidak adil dapat diatasi dengan pelaksanaan undang-undang anti-diskriminasi yang sangat diperlukan yang meliputi semua bentuk diskriminasi terhadap etnik minoriti, wanita, orang kurang upaya dan pekerja lebih tua. My fellow Singaporeans, on the issue of ageism, we at the Workers' Party acknowledged that there are existing measures such as Staff's initiatives at creating an age-friendly workplace to fight against ageism. However, ageism is entrenched in our society and inhibits willing seniors from finding opportunities. We must do more to eradicate ageism. My fellow Singaporeans, I reiterate the calls made by my colleagues that the Workers' Party see our seniors as valuable members of our society. Make your vote count. Vote for the Workers' Party and join us in stamping out ageism. Manfaatkan undi anda. Undilah Parti Pekerja. Terima kasih.
Sharif has raised some interesting issues in respect of retirement adequacy. Dylan, given you've essentially helped people in terms of their retirement plans and perhaps a financial plan, I'm just wondering if you might comment.
When you talk about retirement adequacy, actually there are two parts to it. One is your CPF scheme. The other one is your personal investment or retirement plan outside the CPF scheme. So let's talk about the CPF scheme. Okay, currently they are the default plan, the standard plan as we know it. Surely there are the other two plans, the escalating plan as well as the basic plan. Let us come back to the default plan. You need to set aside 181,000 to have a payout of monthly payout of 1,003 to 1,004. A recent survey showed that an individual needs about 1,003 just to retire. So that is barely enough. Okay, so most Singaporeans with surpluses, they will have to invest outside the CPF scheme. And can you imagine those group of seniors without 181,000? They probably had 90,000, 100,000, and their payout is only 700. So truly they fall short of their retirement. So for the other group of Singaporeans who has the ability to invest outside to have their retirement plan by purchasing from insurer, what I have gathered from my years of working in the banks, 1 out of every 3 Singaporeans did not plan for their retirement. Of the 2/3 who plan for their retirement, more than 50% of them are investing at the wrong financial instrument. They have taken too much risk, and imagine if the market were to tank when they retire, then we have a serious retirement shortfall.
Thank you, Dylan.
So, everyone, if you don't mind me jumping in here, since we're talking about retirement adequacy, I feel that as a woman, I should also highlight the special problem faced by women as far as retirement adequacy is concerned. I think we all know that there are many women who have career disruption, of course, voluntarily, most of them, because they choose to care for family members full-time, whether it be children, grandchildren, or even elderly parents. And of course, this will affect their not only income, but also their CPF savings. I believe there's some statistics which show that on the average, I think women have probably around 20% less in their CPF savings compared to their male counterparts. So coupled with the fact that women live longer, so the real prospect of women growing old in some sort of poverty is there for quite a number of women. And I think it behooves us, when we look at policies, not to aggravate this problem. So, for example, recently in the last parliament, there was a proposal which has been passed to institute a compulsory disability insurance called CareShield Life, which applies to cohorts born in 1980 and later. And one of the unsatisfactory aspects of this, as far as WP is concerned, is the fact that being a compulsory insurance, the premiums are still gender differentiated. So women have to pay more premiums. And we don't see why this has to be the case by design, because if it's compulsory insurance, they can easily design it in such a way where it is a unisex premium, same paid by men and women. And we strongly feel that it is time for the men to pay slightly more premiums to cross-subsidize the women and to make up for all the unpaid work that women do for their families.
Right. Sharif also makes his case for the abolition of the retirement age. JJ, what do you think about that? Is that a good idea?
Yes, I mean, the Workers' Party has called for the abolition of the removal of this retirement age. And if you look at statistics from last year, we have 160,000 senior citizens above 65 who are still working. There are a number of people who still want to work and who are able to. So by having a retirement age mandatory, that is actually a hindrance for them. And if you actually look at contracts these days, employers can already terminate with 1 to 3 months notice period. So having a retirement age isn't a kind of a safeguard, actually. And if you look, for example, even at our parliament, you look at the ministers, current and ex-ministers, and even some MPs, current and ex, many of them have actually crossed the retirement age. There's no mandatory retirement age in parliament, so why force it on others?
We now move to Dennis's speech and what some people have described as the silver tsunami.
亲爱的新加坡同胞们，我们时常会提到新加坡人口老龄化、即将到来的银发海啸以及随之而来的相关问题等课题。但是这样的讨论框架，使得我们把年长人士描绘成一种负担。工人党拒绝这种悲观的观点， 我们将年长人士视为社会的重要成员，而他们继续以自己独特的方式为我国做出贡献。特别是我们的建国一代和立国一代，他们为实现我国今天的繁荣进步做出了很多牺牲。因此，我们理应确保他们能够有尊严地度过黄金年华。要达到这一点，我们必须先让公积金里的资金得以流动。政府决定将公积金可领取入息年龄和公积金终身入息计划的领取入息年龄设定为65岁，限制了年长人士使用这笔资金，而他们在现在的经济环境下可能面临被裁员，并难以寻得新工作、收入减少的困境。这样的限制可以说是雪上加霜。年长人士可以被授权做出明智的选择，决定何时开始动用他们的退休存款。我们认为可以更早的让他们享有这个决定权。我们因此呼吁，将公积金可领取入息年龄和公积金终身入息计划的领取入息年龄降低到60岁。赋予年长人士这样的选择权，也意味着我们必须重新审视智慧国的计划。冠状病毒19突显出的一个现象是，年长人士因为我们对效率的不懈追求而被淘汰了。上个月，共和党主席林瑞莲在国会谈到了年长人士学习掌握数码系统时所面临的困难。即使有了孩子的帮忙，他们仍然在登录并使用政府服务时面临困难。我们希望新加坡能够成为一个明智的国家，而不仅仅是一个智慧国。我们应该为无法适应数码化的年长人士提供通过柜台教育完成政府服务的选择。我们也应该确保年长人士能够以低成本使用这些数码工具，因为他们当中有许多人已经没有收入了。共和党也相信，我们要赋予年长人士相互联系的能力。许多年长人士都会使用公共交通系统，为确保他们能够继续与他人保持联系，我们认为65岁以上的新加坡人应该能够免费乘坐公共交通工具。共和党相信，我国的年长人士在为自己和孩子塑造一个公平的未来方面有发言权。共和党向你们致敬，请相信，我们为全民打造的新加坡中，绝对有你们一席之位。让您的一票成就未来，请投共人党一票，谢谢。
Dennis has discussed the issue of an aging population. There were some negative reports in the press, in my mind, because they described this as a silver tsunami. Azhar, do you think that that's a fair label?
Thanks, Darren. Definitely not, that's for sure. Even the word tsunami itself has a negative connotation to it. You know, when we talk about tsunami, we think about, deaths. We don't want to see the issue of aging population to be viewed in that way. Yes, we understand that there are challenges inherent in an aging population, and by extension, society can sometimes view seniors with negativity. But we at the Workers' Party, we reject this negative perception. We don't want to see seniors in a negative light, for the simple reason that, the seniors are part of us, they are part of our community, and they still have an asset, and they can be a valuable member of society. Over the years, the seniors have accumulated large experiences, valuable knowledge, which can then be passed down to the younger generation. And this is essentially how society learns. The younger generation learning from the older generation, and that leads to the betterment of society.
Azhar, I'm really glad for that, because in a few years' time, I'm also going to be joining the ranks of the silver-haired, albeit that you may not be able to tell. But CPF and drawdown at 60 was something else that Dennis had actually brought up. Dylan, I think you're very qualified to speak on this.
I feel seniors must be empowered to make an informed choice when to draw down their hard-earned money. Okay, we are talking about more destruction. We are talking about shorter economy cycle, income instability. So earnings longevity is no longer guaranteed. Most of our seniors, they feel insecure when they know that their CPF money is locked up till 65 or even 70. So the Workers' Party believe lowering the eligibility payout age to 60 will give our senior a lot of empowerment, a lot of rooms to make some of this payment, to pay for chunky medical bills, to live on their so-called daily expenditure. Yeah, I think importantly, we also know the fact that more seniors are getting critically sick now. 37 Singaporeans are diagnosed with cancer every day. And the treatment cost is 120,000 to 150,000 per year. Translate to about more than 10,000 per month. And you know our median income is about 4 to 5K per month.
Right.
So there's hardly enough to go by. So the Workers' Party believe lowering the payout age to 60 is the right thing to do to give our senior an options. For those with the surplus, they can choose to stick to 65 and 70. That's just prerogative.
Sure. Dennis also raises the issue of a digital divide. I mean, my father hasn't carried a technological device since the pager went out of fashion. I mean, you know, as we advance towards a smart nation, have we left our older folks behind? I recall that, Sylvia, you'd given a speech in Parliament about this issue.
Yes, it was recently during the Fortitude budget debate. I felt compelled to speak on this issue of digital divide because both of my personal observations and also resident feedback, because we have quite a number of senior citizens living in our area, in our constituency. So first, my personal observations. Around me, for instance, I do know many people who don't have SingPass today. That's incredible to me because you know, of this relentless push by the government to make everybody transact digitally using SingPass. And I remember going to a CPF branch office just a couple of months ago, observing a typical reaction, I would say, where there was an elderly man there with his daughter, and then the daughter was telling him, Papa, 我们现在去楼上拿 SingPass. And then the poor man, you know, just nodded and obeyed his daughter's instructions because I think he has no clue of how to connect himself with SingPass. You know, and of course, nowadays when we talk about logging in and transacting with the government, we are not talking about just an email, but you have to actually get, first of all, log in with the correct ID, and then you have to wait for your one-time password. Then you have to confirm that you're not a robot by typing in some complicated formula, which is usually hazy and you can't see clearly. So all these, I think, are big challenges.
I get it wrong most of the time as well.
I think most, I mean, to be fair, I think the majority of citizens appreciate the ability to transact digitally with the government. It saves us time queuing up at the branch offices and all that. But for some people, I think it is really quite onerous and probably not possible for them to manage on their own. The other thing which residents have brought up to me is also about the cost of things. You probably need a smartphone to use a SingPass, and each SingPass is tied to a particular phone number for security reasons, obviously. But that means that children who want to help their parents will need to still get a dedicated phone number for their parents in order to transact SingPass. So all these things add up to cost. You know, so I called on the government during the Fortitude budget to do a few things, one of which was, first of all, to look at low-cost plans for basic services for the elderly, and secondly, also to provide always a non-digital option for our senior citizens who may choose not to want to try to battle on with this if they feel they cannot manage it, and to have some counter service. So the Minister for Communications and Information, Mr. Iswaran, he did acknowledge the concerns. And recently, last couple of days, we saw that there are telcos rolling out some basic plans for senior citizens, but I think those are restricted to people living in public rental housing or those on ComCare assistance, which seems a bit narrow to me, but we'll have to see how it works out. And of course, the other thing about counter service, I think, is something that probably quite a number of people would still want to be retained.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Please allow me to just jump in.
Yes, of course.
Quickly. Yeah, my years of experience in the bank, we have sometimes observed elderly, senior Singaporeans coming to the branches to approach the counter to seek help. 我买了这个电话，你可以帮我吗？要怎么用这个网际来付账？ So those internet functionality that we take for granted to pay for our bills, to as a payee, is something that our senior, they feel very helpless. They need a lot of help. So to me, digitalization, instead of empowering the senior, may in certain regard disempower them. Yeah.
Right. Finally, Dennis makes a case for providing free transportation for Singaporeans 65 and above. JJ, we're both going to get there sometime soon. What's the case for this?
Well, I'll get there sooner than you.
Me too.
As Singaporeans get older, we need to encourage active living. So one of the ways of encouraging active living is basically to allow them to have free transport so they can move without this sort of hesitation because maybe they have retired or their income has dropped, right? So transport is something so basic, we don't want them to worry about this sort of things. And you would think about it, many of them would have spent, say, about 40 years contributing to the economy, contributing to society. So this is one way of showing appreciation to them. And I think that showing of appreciation to our senior citizens was also the guiding principle behind some of our schemes like the Medica and the Pioneer Generations, right? And also, there are so many seniors who are currently still working, about 160,000, more than 65 years old. So for these people, their income might have dropped even though they are continuing to work. So this is one way of us helping this senior citizen workers as well.
That's great. That's great. We now move on to Leon Pereira's speech. He talks about HDB flats and lease decay.
My fellow Singaporeans, for many of us, our HDB flat is our single biggest asset. We use the bulk of our savings and CPF from decades of work to finance it. For many, our HDB flat also serves as our main form of retirement savings. A recent OCBC survey found that 2/3 of Singaporeans only have enough savings for at most 6 months of expenses. For many, the notion of asset-rich and cash-poor is a fitting description. The HDB flat is a nest egg for many of our seniors, and many of our seniors dream of taking this asset of theirs and downsizing, using lease buyback or renting out their flat to get money for retirement. We all know that the cost of living in Singapore does not stay still for long. Many seniors who get a fixed income from CPF feel worried about retiring in high-cost Singapore. Minister Lawrence Wong once said that, and I quote, "For the vast majority of HDB flats, the leases will eventually run out. As the leases run down, especially towards the tail end, the flat prices will come down correspondingly," unquote. My friends, to put it bluntly, the resale value of HDB flats goes down to zero at the end of the 99-year lease. That is a fact. The government continues to build new BTO estates. Older flats continue. Very few flats are redeveloped by SIRS. Workers' Party MPs also learned through Parliament that Singapore's resident deaths will probably outnumber births after 2035. My friends, resale prices will come down if there are no people to buy the HDB flats. How then will our seniors monetize their nest egg for retirement by downsizing? On my house visits, I've met many older Singaporeans living in flats that have hit the 40-year mark. They share their experience and thinking. They know the realities. The government has announced a VERS and HIP2 scheme to try and address this. But details on what blocks will be eligible, the compensation formula, and the voting threshold are unknown. Must we really let our population go to 6.9 million by 2030 so we can support our resale prices? But what about the unexpected social costs that we have already seen growing the population so rapidly, so artificially? The Workers' Party is concerned with this lease decay problem, and we have come up with a detailed consultation paper on potential solutions. We propose more SERS redevelopment without the need for a proxy site. We call for a better scheme than lease buyback, a universal lease buyback scheme that all HDB buyers are eligible for at year 70 to support the value of the flats and make it less likely that there will be a price collapse. We suggest that the state uses units that are bought back to rent to Singaporeans who prefer a rental model for a part of their lives at lower rents than market rates. We in the Workers' Party believe that our policy proposals are sensible extensions to our existing HDB model and will help all Singaporeans with their retirement. We will further research, develop and push for such rational, responsible ideas in Parliament to support seniors in HDB flats. But how can these ideas receive serious attention if we have no fully elected opposition MPs armed with the mandate of the people? Please support this effort by making your vote count. Vote Workers' Party.
Well, the relatively recent revelation about HDB flats upon the expiry of their lease going to zero has really caught a lot of Singaporeans by surprise. JJ, what do you think of this situation?
Well, I think this is a very serious problem that is growing. If you look at the statistics today, there are more than 220,000 flats that are over 40 years old. Take 10 years from now, 2030, this 220,000 flats will be more than 50 years old. And coming on stream will be another 500,000 flats by then, which will be 40 years old or more. Now, what's the problem with that? When flats reach 50 years old or more, it will start to drop in value. And if it has only 35 years left to the lease, no banks will loan them. And what will happen? That will be at a point where the decline will even be sharper. And we have so many flats coming in at this kind of age now. The economist Yo Lam Keong has stated in one of the Future of Singapore talk that for the lowest 50% of the income earners in Singapore, the HDB flats actually form 75 to 90% of their net asset. So you can imagine these people are so dependent on the HDB to be the nest egg. And if they're sitting on an old flat, by the time they want to cash it out, they will find a problem because the value of the flats have actually dropped even below what they have bought. So this is a very serious problem which has to be tackled urgently. And the Workers' Party last year came up with a paper to push for further conversation on this, because what the government has proposed, the verse, basically is very vague. It's kicking the can down the road. We do not know what is the solution to it. And we urgently need to have a conversation to resolve this problem, because many Singaporeans are literally depending on their value of the HDB flat to be their retirement nest egg. And that, sadly, can fall to zero, although the government has in the past said that you'll never fall. But we know that now that cannot be true, because the lease agreement you signed with HDB basically tells you that when it reaches 99 and nothing else is done, it becomes zero.
Well, I think that that's a fairly serious issue that our next government will have to resolve. Moving on to the issue of health costs. We have Kenneth Foo and also Pritam Singh who have speeches on that.
Singapore is an aging society. By 2030, there will be over 900,000 seniors over the age of 65. With a growing population comes greater demand for healthcare services such as daycare, home care, or residential services, which we call intermediate long-term care, ILTC in short. To cope with the demand, the government promised to make available more elderly care facilities, such as 17,000 nursing home places by 2020. Having more places may solve the capacity challenge, but affordability remains a key concern, especially among the middle-income families. A 2018 Lien Foundation report found that the median cost for someone who stays at a nursing home is about $2,100 a month. Yes, there are subsidies you can apply for. However, these subsidies are only available to households with a household income per member below $2,800. More than 1 in 2 Singaporean families will not qualify for this subsidy because the latest median household income per member is $2,925. By international standards, Singapore spends only 0.19% of our GDP on long-term care, which pales in comparison to the 1.4% spent in 2014 by OECD countries that include France, Germany, Greece, Italy, Spain, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom. We, the Workers' Party, believe that it is our moral duty to take care of our parents and elderly. Living with dignity, especially in old age, is a human right. We raised the concern of long-term healthcare financing in the Parliament, asked the government if they have done any study to ascertain the long-term financing needs of middle-income households in the next 5 to 10 years, and what more can be done to support the middle-income households who fall outside the government subsidy threshold. If we want a brighter future for Singapore, more needs to be done to support the sandwich class. To help the middle-income families to cope with the rising healthcare costs, we propose that the monthly household per capita income qualifying limit should be increased to $3,200, and that subsidies should be increased to 65 to 80% for approved ILTC services. This means that more needy families will be able to afford social care and avoid significant financial setbacks. My father had a stroke in 2010. Back then, we had to pay $830 per month just for the daycare with rehab. 10 years later, today, the cost has doubled, as daycare services without rehab could cost as much as $1,600 a month. Without financial support, many middle-income families will struggle to provide for their elderly. We believe that our elderly should be cared for in their golden years and have the right to live out the rest of their lives with dignity. And that is why alternative voices are needed in the Parliament to challenge the status quo and fight for a better future for you, for Singapore. Vote the Workers' Party, make your vote count.
Let me share an experience about healthcare. I met David, an Aljunied resident in his 70s, over his medical bill. He was hospitalized after feeling unwell for 2 days. Doctors discovered that he had suffered from a stroke. It was a minor miracle that he was still alive after 2 days without treatment. David chose a Class C ward and his total bill hit slightly over $4,000, the bulk of which was subsidized. He still had to pay about 25% of the bill. Some of that balance could be settled by MediSave, and that came up to about $900. A few $100s still had to come out from his pocket. David was concerned that MediShield Life did not contribute a single cent to his bill. He wondered why all the MediShield Life premiums he had been paying each year did not help with his out-of-pocket expenses. He had a bigger concern. Why could he not use the remainder of his MediSave monies to pay for the extra $200 to $300? As someone well into his 70s and with a healthy MediSave balance, David felt that the system was too rigid. For a senior who did not have a steady stream of income, unlike when he was working, out-of-pocket health expenses were a pain point and a source of anxiety. Health expenses are not some fancy luxury. They are a key bread and butter issue. If this was not clear before, COVID-19 should have removed all doubt. Workers' Party MPs got the PAP to share in Parliament that 8 out of 10 such subsidized hospitalizations were paid for with $100 or less in cash. However, the median, not the average, cash payment for the remaining 2 out of 10 hospitalizations came up to about $500 between 2015 and 2017. This affects thousands of regular Singaporeans. It is a large sum of money. It can be particularly costly for retirees and even working seniors. For many Singaporeans above the age of 60, Flexi Medisave allows them to withdraw up to $200 for outpatient treatments. But we also learnt in Parliament that about 136,000 fellow Singaporeans have already hit the limit of Flexi Medisave in 2018 and cannot make further withdrawals. Sure, the Ministry of Health has loosened some limits and reviewed policies over the years, but we believe they can go further. As David and the 136,000 Singaporeans I referred to earlier remind us, too many seniors fall between the multitude of medical assistance schemes, some of which are too narrowly scoped or overly calibrated. A key plank of the Workers' Party manifesto addresses this gap. We will advocate strongly for our seniors. The Workers' Party manifesto calls for specific measures to reduce the anxiety of our seniors. Policymakers must put themselves in the shoes of ordinary people and not decide in some antiseptic office. Some may want to accuse us of financial imprudence, but many of our proposals seek changes that have no direct fiscal impact. This includes liberalization of Medisave monies for Singaporeans with healthy Medisave balances. Others have some financial impact, such as free transport for seniors above 65 and for people with disabilities. The Workers' Party fights for these changes because Singaporeans deserve to be treated with dignity and live in their senior years, their golden years, in dignity. Additional support for our seniors, all of whom have worked hard and paid taxes to live a productive and fulfilling retirement, is important. Singapore's senior citizen population is anticipated to double in 10 years from 450,000 today to 900,000 in 2030. This makes healthcare and cost of living concerns for seniors, in particular, a top priority for the Workers' Party. Change only happens if we push together. Doing so in Parliament matters. Make your vote count. Vote for the Workers' Party.
Azhar, we had a chat a couple of months ago where your dad had gone to hospital. I think it's actually quite relevant in relation to what we're discussing. I'm just wondering if you might share.
Thanks, Darren. Yes, you're right. In 2011, my dad, my late father, was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. Its technical name is multiple myeloma. So, you know, as with any illnesses, the cost of treatment is very, very high. My father was in and out of hospital, each admission lasting, you know, more than a week. We were struggling with the bills. It came to a point whereby even before we managed to settle one bill, the next one comes. And the cost of medicines is mind-boggling. I remembered my father being given a tablet which costs US $500. So it was so expensive to a point where, you know, when my father actually dropped the tablet by accident, he rushed to pick it up, clean it off, and eat it. So that was the problem that we faced. And then we were just stumped. We were at our wits' end as to how are we going to settle the bills. So we approached social workers, but the assistance that we got were few and far between. So fortunately, I approached my MP, who happens to be Mr. Faisal Manab. I'm a resident of Aljunied GRC myself. So we seek his assistance, and through his appeal letters, we managed to get assistance from various community self-help groups and also some other kind donors who heard about my father's plight. So we managed to settle the bills eventually, but it is still a cause for concern because what my father went through, what we went through, is something that a lot of Singaporean seniors are going through at the same time as we speak. So it needs to be addressed. The cost, the skyrocketing cost of medical treatment has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed urgently.
Yes, that's right. I mean, I think a former minister of our government had pragmatically suggested that we move grandma to Johor in order to try and contain these expenses.
I do remember that. That was in the parliament before 2011. And I must say that I don't think it is right on principle for us to outsource, the cost or the responsibility of caring for our seniors to another country. But of course, I think many of us do know that before this movement control order came into force, many people are traveling to JB to buy their medicines, which they can find there at less than half of the cost. So, I mean, all in all, I think everybody would agree that the cost of healthcare can be prohibitive, and it is something that needs serious study.
We've just about come to the end of this show. I'd like to invite all of our panelists just to make some final remarks. Dylan.
Sure. The Workers' Party believes there's no simple solutions to retirement adequacy. Our seniors should not be made to believe that CPF scheme is the only scheme for them to retire comfortably. And they must have the empowerment to make an informed choice of when to draw down their hard-earned savings.
And JJ?
Oh yes, I agree with Dylan that there are many problems to resolve as our population ages. And I think the one for me that's most urgent to look into is the problem of our decaying HDB lease, where the value will drop very significantly pretty soon, and many Singaporeans depend on that for their retirement. So we will need a serious conversation about it, and we cannot kick the can down the road anymore.
And Azhar, maybe you have some concluding remarks.
So I would like to end off by emphasizing the importance of family members looking after our elderly families. When they are of that age, they have no one else to depend on other than your own family members. So that will be the first line of defense. We shouldn't be leaving them to the mercy of social programs, because sometimes they may not even qualify for it, or even they may have difficulties looking for it. So the one thing that they can depend on will be their family members. So I urge family members to do your part to look after the seniors, as to how they have looked after us when we were much younger.
And Sylvia.
From the point of view, I think, of the party, I should say to all senior citizens, and also those of you who have families with senior citizens, I think all of us do, that the Workers' Party is very mindful of these concerns that touch on the lives of our seniors. And what we can assure you is that it will always be at the top of our minds to look into some of these issues, to contribute constructively towards debate with the government about what should be done to ensure that all seniors in Singapore can live their golden years happily and with the dignity and respect that you deserve.
Thank you so much for watching. Do watch out for our other shows which are coming on stream. We wish you good health. Take care and make your vote count.